At exactly 2:13 in the morning, Daniel picked up the last passenger of his night. She was standing alone beneath a broken streetlight, wearing a long black coat with no phone and no luggage. She quietly climbed into the back seat and whispered just 2 words, "Take me home." Daniel glanced at her through the rearview mirror. Something about her felt strangely wrong. He asked for her address. She gave him one without hesitation. But when Daniel entered it into his GPS, the destination couldn't be found. He searched for the address manually, and what he discovered made his stomach drop. The house at that address had been demolished 10 years ago. Daniel looked at her and said, "That place doesn't exist anymore." She stared out the window and quietly replied, "I know." Daniel continued driving. The streets became emptier, the lights disappeared, and the rain grew heavier. Then Daniel noticed something terrifying. His passenger hadn't moved for almost 10 minutes. He looked into the rearview mirror again, and the back seat was completely empty. Then suddenly, 3 knocks came from the passenger window. Daniel slowly turned his head and saw the woman standing outside the taxi. She was smiling. Daniel panicked and accelerated away, but his GPS still showed the same destination. 2 minutes later, he saw something that should have been impossible. The house from the address was standing right in front of him. Daniel froze. The house had glowing windows, even though he knew it had been demolished years ago. He looked into the back seat. The woman was there again. This time, tears were running down her face. Daniel whispered, "Who are you?" She pointed toward the house and said, "My daughter is still inside." Daniel stepped out of the taxi and slowly walked toward the house. The front door suddenly opened by itself. Inside, the hallway was covered with old family photographs. Then Daniel heard something from the darkness. A little girl's voice whispered, "Mommy?" Daniel looked down the hall. She looked at him and slowly pointed behind him. Daniel turned around and saw the woman standing in the doorway. Her face looked nothing like it had before. She stared at Daniel and whispered, "Thank you for bringing me home." Daniel ran. He sprinted through the hallway and burst through the front door. But when he looked back, the house was gone. Daniel stood alone in an empty field, staring at his taxi. Then he noticed something lying on the passenger seat. It was an old photograph. The photograph showed the woman, the little girl, and a man standing outside the same house. Daniel stared at the man in the photograph because somehow that man looked exactly like him. Daniel dropped the photograph. Later that morning, he finally reached home and tried to convince himself that everything had been a nightmare. Then his phone rang. It was an unknown number. Daniel answered. For several seconds, there was nothing but static. So who was the driver in that photograph? And why did the woman choose Daniel? Nobody knows. But drivers who pass Old Mill Road after midnight still tell the same story. Sometimes a woman in a black coat appears beneath the streetlight, and she only asks for one destination, 17 Blackwood Lane. And if your GPS ever takes you there, whatever you do, don't pick up the passenger.